Well, hello and welcome back to Watchbox Studios and Watches Tonight. I am your host, Tim Mosso. This evening, I discuss watch collecting mistakes I've made, and I have made many, why nobody wants customized watches, and we are answering definitively the question, is the Rolex Datejust a dress watch? All of that and your viewer wrist shots this evening. Remember, the people who pay for these pixels and keep this roof and lights over my head, thewatchbox.com, 3,000 pre-owned and vintage timepieces live right now. Indies, big groups, classical, sports watches, avant-garde, complications are very simple. We've got it all. Check out thewatchbox.com, open up another window, keep me streaming. Let's see who's joining in the box. We've got Working Edge. We've got Edward Ledden, Mr. No Date, Sean B. from Temple, Texas. Edward, of course, from Sweden. Marcus T. from Germany. Matt Foster. We've got Mateo C. Boutique 1 from Poland. Joe Tyson from Apex, North Carolina. We've got Pascal Luthi from Switzerland. Dave Openkar, who is a fan of Zinn, Ball, and Grand Seiko. Dr. Stu, back in the box. Soma R. from Budapest. Rick on Watches from Wisconsin in the American Midwest. Philip Savage from Germany. Simon Templar, Time Hill, and Turkischer Meister, our friend in Turkey. MCC Le Chinois, John N., Sean Hansen, and we've got the Oat Take, Christopher H., Tim S., welcome from Germany, Tim and Eric B. Okay, so let's take a look at some of yours on mine. I asked you answered wrist shots, and some great ones right here, I must say. Marcus of Germany, he's in the box right now, watching live. Stunning with his limited edition de Bethune DB28 XP Meteorite. That is why de Bethune is my favorite brand. And Marcus, you are quickly becoming my favorite wrist shot. Khalid A. of Dubai gives him a run for his money, though, with his Grand Seiko and Lexus LFA. Simon H. and Watchbox bought Rolex Yachtmaster, cruised silently in his wife's Tesla. Thank you for trusting our company, Simon. Adam F. of Philadelphia combines Maserati and Moser with his Streamliner Center Second Matrix Green Dial. Simon T., a different Simon, tests the Man of Steel with watches of gold from Vacheron and Rolex. Well chosen. And Marcus T., one more time, because they're just that good. He doubles up with his engraved enamel dial H. Moser & C. Heritage Tourbillon. A flying tourbillon, no less. Truly special stuff. Guys, even if your wrist shots can't measure up to that, please send whichever you've got. I don't care if it's Seiko, I don't care if it's G-Shock, I don't care if it's Squale, to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. Who's in the box right here? We've got Gunny H. We've got Yasis J. joining from Adelaide, Australia, getting up early with us. Marceau R. Time Hill saying DB28, wow, it doesn't get any better. You know what? I got to agree with you. J-Bo Surf, also from Adelaide, Australia, and Pete's Timepiece Safari from continental Europe in Croatia, down in the Balkans, joining live. Mark S., a local boy from Brooklyn, and Rich Buddy and Aaron Brooks. Guys, welcome to the show. We're talking about mistakes I have made as a watch collector, and I have made many. Mistakes I've made? Almost too many to count, but I'm going to try to tick off the big ones and hopefully the ones that will help you avoid the same pitfalls. So the most relevant mistakes I've made, I would say the first big mistake I made chronologically was making a big commitment before I had a sense of my tastes. Now, this was my first haute horlogerie piece, it was my first JLC, and it was my first five-figure watch. I bought it while I was in the Navy. It was going to be that or a Ducati. I was a young guy, single, making good money, and I just maxed out my runtime on the Navy PFA. So I felt like, this is an occasion, and I bought that. And that was a cool watch. But at over 46 millimeters, the size was ridiculous. And while it fit just, it's not ultimately the kind of watch that sustained my interest long term. What happened? Well, I read too much and too little at the same time, and I quickly followed the first impulse upon which I seized. No, I didn't run straight for Omega, Rolex, or Breitling. I did sort of find that JLC appealed to me as a brand, but I probably chose the wrong watch, and I convinced myself by saying, well, it's really like buying several watches at once. You've got a world time, you've got a swimmable sports watch, you've got a quick change strap system for rubber or leather, so you could wear it for dress or informal. It's a watch that's an alarm, so it's practical to keep you on track in the military, but the bottom line was the size of it and the ambiance of the watch. This was the watch JLC launched, the Extreme World Time from the Master Compressor Extreme collection. This was the watch they launched to really fight with the Royal Oak Offshore during the 2000s. That and the better-known World Time Chrono were best sellers in their day, but for folks who didn't have my tastes. So it wound up being the odd man out in my collection, and I always wished that I'd waited just a little bit longer to more rationally look at this, think about the size of the watch and the fit of the watch, try it on rather than buying something I saw online, and I would have gone realistically for the Master Compressor Memovox, which was a 41.5mm watch, substantially smaller and with more enduring appeal to me. So I made a mistake by going big right out of the gate. If I bought some smaller watches before working up to a 5-figure piece, I probably would have had a better chance to gauge what kind of watch and what size of watch I liked best. Also, buying more than one watch at a time. At one point, I bought 5 watches at the same time. And while I loved them all and wore many of them frequently, over the years I found I just didn't have any real emotions or memories to tie me to those watches. They all came in one big rush of buying, which I did because I could. I liked all the watches, but I didn't necessarily love them. And because I didn't savor the experience and take my time to make each acquisition a journey, I wound up just kind of bunching them together in my mind. And so if I didn't have that individual journey and attainment to distinguish each watch in memory and in sentimental value, there wasn't a whole lot binding those watches to me. As a result, not only did I cheat myself of years worth of discovery and adventure, because so much of the pleasure is in the chase, but the memories we build around a watch aren't just the memories of the vacations we take, or the adventures we have, or the special occasions and milestones in life that pass with those watches on the wrist. A lot of the memories we build around our watches are the memories of learning about them, discovery, and falling in love with them before we buy. And that's how you really help to transition the watch purchase from a purchase to an experience. And having those built-in memories before you even own the watch is a really big deal, and it does have a bearing on the longevity of the watch in your collection and your long-term satisfaction with the watch, as well as your sustained interest. Another big mistake I made, confining myself dutifully to a theme. Now that lovely center second classical reverso, and that is the real deal, by the way, guys, late 1930s, factory bracelet too. What a machine. But at the same time, I confined myself to a collection theme. It had to be JLC. And I thought up front this was going to be a way to focus the collection. This was going to be the way to avoid buying on impulse. It was going to force me to really drill down on finding the most important JLCs and then collect those. What it did was it stopped me from buying watches I would have enjoyed, like, for example, the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, or the Omega DeVille Hour Vision, or perhaps the Breitling Navitimer Spaciograph. All these watches that I've come to love and realized I ruled out so soon into my journey as a watch collector that here I am looking back at my first true luxury watch purchase now 11 years ago, realizing all of those watches could have been part of my collection, and I could have built memories and experiences around those watches. And who knows, maybe if I bought the watches I liked best instead of buying the watches that best fit a framework, I might still have those watches. Let's see what you guys are saying in the box right here. We've got Hans N saying, I wore my Hulk on my 50th on a cruise. Will always have great memories. And then right here we have Kathy Lung saying, the chase sometimes is more fun than the ownership, definitely, and it adds to the ownership. You love the watch more if it is a hard-fought acquisition and a long-sought prize. Right here we've got Nate B saying, I totally agree. I bought 2 watches over a few days and never really got the rush that you get from the new watch experience. And then we've got Blake Starr saying, Tim, meet me at Nick and Sam's. Let's talk investment opportunities. What else is going on right here? We have John N saying, wow, that's a lot of watches at once. Yeah, it was. It was a lot and it was too many. And then right here we have J-Bo Surf talking about motorsports, which I adore. I'm a big car fan, as you guys know. And we've got Glenn Thayer joining us tonight. Welcome, Glenn. Thank you for making the show. I appreciate that. Mark S. saying, Tim, if that JLC was too big for you, is a 50-15 50 Fathoms too big for you? No, it's not. The JLC was about 54, 55 millimeters lug to lug, and the 50 fathoms, the 50-15, it's about 50 to 50.5, so almost exactly 50 millimeters. Though it's a 45, it doesn't wear like a 45. It wears more like a 42 or a 43. I've tried it, and it's a good fit. We've got Justin J saying, sounds like what I thought when I bought my first too large Heuer 01. And that is a good point. Hans saying, hello, Tim. Thank you so much for joining me, Hans. And we've got Clam Walker and Time Hill. Let's see what else is going on here in the box. Mick in Florida joining in. And we've got Blake Starr. Tim, you need to rent a Lambo. Time to spice up those watch reviews, buddy. I like that idea, but I'm not sure Lambo is my style. I've got a friend who's all about Lambo, and he's totally committed to it. He's got a second one on order. I'm not sure Lambo will ever be me, or if it is, it's going to be something that people wouldn't recognize as a Lamborghini, like an Islero or a 400 GT. Like something that you would look at and think, oh, that's nice, not, oh, it's a Lamborghini. No, no one would think that from a 400 GT. But wonderful cars. I'm more of a Panos Motorsports type guy. I love motorsports, and you don't get much closer to the track than the Panos brand in the modern era. Really, the modern day Briggs Cunningham, that was Don Panos. So I'm all about that. Daniel Hill, question, Tim, do you get a lot of buyers in their 30s or younger at Watchbox? Definitely people in their 30s. We haven't seen as many people around the office in the last year for obvious reasons. We've done a lot of work remotely, but there are a lot more people coming in who are in their 20s and 30s who are buying online. And I mean, heck, I'm in my 30s, so I see a lot of guys who are around my age coming in and also corresponding with me online. I know that they're buying, they're showing me the watches they bought here. So yes, very much. When I got into this hobby, like first at arm's length back in the early 2000s, I was kind of dispirited. I thought, well, you know, I'll never have a place in this hobby because I'm too young, the collectors are old, they're all in Europe or East Asia, and I'll never really be part of a community of people who are of my age and experience. That's just not going to happen. And yet here I am today, and a lot of you guys in the box right now are guys in your 20s or 30s who are as into this as I am. All right, viewer wrist shots. No, I've got some more mistakes, big ones here. Selling all my JLC watches at once. And I think if there's one I really miss most, it's either that, the Grand Memovox, or the Tourbillon. Just as you shouldn't buy more than one watch at a time, you shouldn't sell more than one watch at a time. You could make a precipitous decision and a big mistake. Don't give them up all at once. The thought I had was that it would be like ripping off a Band-Aid. A split second of pain, but the quicker you do it, the quicker it's over. It was a big mistake because there were watches that I didn't wear enough. There were watches that no longer interested me, and there were watches that I probably would have been happy switching out for something else rather than selling outright. But I sold them all. I had my reasons at the time. I thought my time in the watch industry was coming to an end. I might need the money for the future, and in any event, who knows, maybe I would just focus Zen-like on owning the watches mentally and emotionally from my experience rather than physically on my wrist. And yet here I am, about 3 years on from that mistake, thinking I wish I still had the Duomet and the Grand Memovox and the Platinum No. 2 Tourbillon Reverso. At a bare minimum, I still wish I had those three. And the mistake I made was trying to get it over with as quickly as possible. So sell your watches like you buy them, slowly and individually, never in groups. I also should have thought about trading for watches I wanted more. I should have kept the ones I wore more frequently. That's my Platinum No. 2 Tourbillon, a platinum watch with a white gold 18-karat movement. And yep, that's a Ford GT behind. You know I love my cars. I should not have sold off more than one at a time. That's my Grand Memovox with the old Watch You Want logo, Perpetual calendar, limited edition, alarm, all of those things, and platinum with a blue dial before that was cool. And I should have put them away for a time and returned to them later. That was my Amvox 2, my pusherless chronograph. Automotive inspired, but one of the great chronograph innovations of the 2000s. If I could have kept a fourth watch in the collection with those other three, it would have been this one. So guys, don't make the mistake I made. Sell your watches slowly, do it thoughtfully, and put them away for a little while if you feel like you're fed up with them and fatigued. When you bring them back out, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, who knows, half a year later, you'll appreciate them anew. So those are the mistakes I made as a watch collector. Don't be like me. All right, viewer wrist shots, number 2. Now we're gonna go to yours. See your wrist on my list, and we're starting with Ed H., who blows me away with his vintage 1950s Patek Philippe 2526 automatic enamel dial, handsome, resplendent, timeless, and set against the luxury of Lexus, a perfect pair. Sebastian S. of Germany presents a his and a hers shot with both Breitling and Rolex in Western Germany on the water. Very nice. Glenn T. dives into vernacular cuisine at the reopened Great British Cafe. Good times. Dig in. You are making me hungry right there. By the way, how much do you love the Diet 7-Up in the background with that food in the foreground? Well, at least he's picking his moments, right? Good. Save your bullets for the food, right? Not the fluids. We've got Abdul R. of Germany flying high with his Rolex Explorer 2 polar dial en route to Egypt. We've got Loreno F. from Zurich taking his Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch to its home turf. Well done, guys. See your analog on my digital. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Checking on the box. Sean B. is correct. We have a new Super Chronomat sighting. The big one, 44 millimeters. This is one for Schneider era Breitling fans. If you liked the big, the bold, the UTC modules, the large watches of the 2000s and the 90s, I got good news. The new Super Chronomat family is for you. We've got Hans N. exclaiming, onion rings. I know, right? I'm so hungry. It's a long journey between breakfast and dinner for me. I don't take a lunch when I'm writing. And then right here we've got John N. saying, yum, everything except the Diet 7-Up. And we've got Jack saying, I'm pleasantly surprised to see a San Martin on the screen. I love all watches, guys. I love them even more when you submit them as wrist shots. Daniel Hill, Tim, I see you're wearing a bike shirt. I just bought my first beginner's bike, GMC Denali. Got it used, getting it serviced. Very nice, yeah. This is a shirt my sister sent me, psychologist, and she's out in Denver. Bikes are big out there, and I'm a big roadie, so I love the fact that she sent me a drop bar bike. That means a lot to me. She knows me well. And she might be watching. And then right here we have Detroit Spartan saying, Tim's a closet Spartan, loves the color green. You know that's true. If you like the color green, I'm a friend of yours and a fan of yours. We got Edward Ledden asking, what is the UTC for? The UTC module on a Breitling is a quartz link in the bracelet. It's added as a link between the bracelet and the lug, and it's a second time display. And historically, they've made them in 12 and 24-hour formats, and it's basically a second watch attached to your watch that you can use to track a second time zone on a watch that doesn't have a second time zone. Time Hill saying he loves the shirt. Thank you so much. My sister has excellent taste. And then Nate Dogg, Tim, why do you think Breitling got away from the 1461 movement? Great semi-perpetual, loved it. And it worked well in so many pieces. You know, I'm not really sure, other than the fact that Breitling was just generally trying to streamline its collections. My guess is, and if I had to guess, I'd say it's all volume-based. Georges Kern looked at what wasn't selling, and he culled it from the catalog. That said, Breitling still owns the rights to the module, so if the UTC module came back and we're seeing big Breitlings again, there is always a chance that a 1461 semi-perpetual calendar could come back into the collection. And I hope it does, because I liked those watches. All right. Let's talk about why nobody wants customized watches. It's a little bit counterintuitive. You would think luxury is all about getting an individual tailored experience, and high luxury with customization should be the apotheosis of that. A one-of-one watch built just for you. Who wouldn't want such a thing? And if you were buying it used, piece unique, adding to the appeal, right? Wrong. People do not want customized watches. They don't want non-standard watches. They don't want individualized watches. What they want is basically the same thing everyone else has. Think about this. What do the most popular products of Rolex, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, and even FP Journe have in common? Their most popular, most in-demand watches are consistent, uniform, and standardized. They're basically the same thing wherever you buy them for any wrist size, in any marketplace, on any sales medium. So, not just a rejection of planned obsolescence. The Submariner has looked the same since the early 1960s. The Nautilus has looked the same since the mid-1970s. The Royal Oak Jumbo has looked the same since 1972. And of course, FP Journe established his Octa automatic style back in 2001 and the Chronomètre Bleu back in 2009. All of these things look the same over time. There is no planned obsolescence. But in addition to that, there are very few options. With a Submariner, you have a couple of different case metals and dial colors, date or no date. With the 5711, you have even fewer choices to make, and if you want a 15202 from AP, it's basically down to dial color and metal, and that's it. These are the most popular watches precisely because they are such a well-known quantity. The more variation there is, the less standard the watch becomes. The less standard the watch, the less obvious it is to the low-information buyer who just wants the thing. And unfortunately, that is probably the majority of the money in the market, propelling those kind of watches that predominate on social media. I would also say that people don't want an option to personalize their watch. Think about it. If you're buying a Rolex, a modern Rolex, not a vintage piece, but you're buying a modern Rolex, do you want it to say on the back, "To Bert for your bar mitzvah"? I mean, maybe. If your name is Bert and you had a bar mitzvah, that's a great match. But for anyone else, it's just a little weird, especially when that winds up hot stamped onto your wrist on a hot day. So most people just want the standardized watch, sans engraving, sans enameling, sans lacquering, which is why no one wants your custom engraved reverso unless your name is Douglas MacArthur. That custom reverso sold for a lot of money. Rest assured, yours won't. People don't want non-standard versions of iconic watches. Look at vintage. Unworn, box stock with full factory papers and packaging is the ideal. The best vintage watch is the one that's seized up because it still has original factory oiling in it from 1961. Even in the realm of vintage, where you might accept a little bit of engraving or personalization, the best is still box stock standard with everything that came from the boutique, preferably including some sort of a bill of sale for like $100 for your 1961 Rolex Milgauss. I would also say this, the same is true of pre-owned watches. Do you think that your Datejust with 47th Street Diamond District customization is worth twice as much as a standard steel Datejust? We had to explain to a client back in the watch you want era that even though he doubled the cost of his watch by getting the bezel blazing with diamonds, we actually would have to get rid of that, send it back to Rolex for a factory steel bezel, and then try to dump that bezel somewhere on the aftermarket to get back cost in gold and the value of the diamonds. We wanted nothing to do with that watch because it was customized. And if you want the best Rolex to sell, it's going to be as close to the watch that Rolex made. This is very important. JLC offers factory customization on your reverso. You can get it engraved, you can get it lacquered, all very cool, but only do it if you don't care about resale or you plan to keep the watch forever. So what I found with custom painting, engraving, gem setting, and configurations is that some collectors treat customization exactly the way they would treat excessive or poorly executed refinishing. No one wants an old watch that's been polished down to a stump, and no one wants a relatively new watch that's been fully engraved on a part that can't be removed. If it's a case back, Bert, for your bar mitzvah, maybe that doesn't kill the deal. You can always have a case back replaced when you send it back to Rolex for customization. But if you have like a Joffrey Gournay full gunmetal engraved case, forget it. That's the end of the watch. Unless you find someone who wants exactly that, even a factory service and parts replacement is not going to do the deed, because you're going to wind up with a watch that's got a disparity between case number and movement number, like a non-numbers matching car in perpetuity. People want the same damn thing exactly as it was made. And often, with watches we sell pre-owned, even if there's a gorgeous aftermarket strap brand new on the watch, we'll take that off and put back the chintzy factory spec strap, just because a lot of people are resistant to buying anything that's even slightly different from the way it came from the factory. Meaning, if you get a JLC factory strap, or something like a Parisian-made Jean Rousseau, one strap, the JLC factory, feels like cardboard. Jean Rousseau, though made of gator, feels like silk. Which one do most people want to see in our photos of the watch? They want to see the JLC factory piece. I would also say this, people want iconic things that are every inch the recognizable institutions they imagine. Nobody wants a pink Ferrari, a large Mini Cooper, a diet cheesecake at an Italian wedding, or plastic cowboy boots in Texas. These are not what people imagine. It's not what they see in their mind's eye. It's not what they have in their heart, and they just flat out don't want it. And again, once more, no one wants your 47th Street Special Datejust. It might have cost you twice retail, but no one else is paying for those diamonds. So let's see what you guys are saying in the box. Time Hill with classic guitars, and I'll mention classic watches and classic guitars. Originality is everything. We've got Jabo Surf, we've got Blake Starr, we've got Addie Myers, John Doe saying custom, I would want a meteorite dial, but even better, a factory Rolex meteorite dial. Right here, we have Simon T saying best Rolex to sell still has the sticker on the back, but you can't buy it because you're not a customer. Ooh. Right here, we've got Gags117. Speaking of engraving reversos, any idea who approached to get one engraved, customized in the UK? Well, JLC does it. They have a factory set up for doing all of their engravings. There was a time when they would do this stuff regionally through approved vendors like in North America, but those people have either been phased out or retired. So if you want to get a reverso engraved today or lacquered or enameled, the best place to start is probably JLC, especially since if you do eventually want to sell it, at least you can make the case that it was done by the factory. And then let's see, we have Andrew M saying, I wish Rolex were more flexible with Cyclops, flip lock, glide lock, and crown clasp. I would love to have that crown clasp on my Pepsi. Maybe someday you can configure that, but I wouldn't bet on it. Not on a Submariner. I think the thing Rolex has figured out is that the fewer options you offer, the more people want the watch. And then Edward Ledden wisely opining that only customize if you plan to keep the watch for life. And then Aaron Brooks saying, I do want a watch that's been stump polished. Maybe you're the guy who also likes those rusted out cars I'm seeing these days. You know, the 1987 like BMW E30 3 Series that's been entirely rusted out using like a chemical applique. Maybe you're that guy. That might be the right car for you, and you will have no shortage of options if you wish to purchase poorly refinished old Rolex watches. It is a buyer's market, my man. All right, let's take a look at some of yours on mine. Viewer wrist shots number 3. Ed K of Orange County, California enjoys top-level beer, ramen, and timekeeping with Grand Seiko. By the way, that is the Cadillac of ramen, and Asahi, I guess that's the Lexus of beers. And then right here we've got Jeffrey M. and his Athenian Owl Reverso celebrating his MBA attainment at Rice University graduation. Congratulations. That's customization of a reverso, and a fairly large reverso that is well done. Edward B. enjoys a round of drinks with, well, I'm overusing this, but the Cadillac of Submariners. Maybe we'll make this one the Mercedes-Benz or the Maybach of Submariners. The original blue sub, the original white gold series production sub, it's the Smurf. By the way, I would love to know what's in the glass. Dana A. showcases a watches and wheels moment with his rose gold ceramic Rolex Daytona. You know I'm a fan. Watches and wheels, guys, send them to me. I want to see what you're riding or driving, as well as what you're wearing. John M. impresses with his spectacular Glasuta Original Vintage 60s Big Date Orange Varnish Dial, a 1-year edition. Very special. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Okay, thoughts on steel dress watches. Why I adore the 2021 Breitling Premier B09 from the new Premier Heritage Collection. This is a watch that's got it all going on, but nothing particularly revolutionary here. It's the sum of many small refinements. How is it that this watch seized and absconded with my heart? It's not a new design. It's not a new model line. The Premier came out in late 2018. It's not technically innovative. We've seen this base movement before. It's not a mechanical upgrade of the old product. What it is a manual wind version, but I would also say that in 2021 of all years, we can't declare a green dial to be much of a maverick play. Even though this is an unusual pistachio shade, and I love both the color and the ice cream, this is no longer as different as it would have been, say, 2 or 3 years ago. But I love this watch because all the elements come together in concert. Because I never envisioned Breitling as a champion of mainstream, reasonably sized, manual wind, steel dress watches. This just came out of left field, and I adore it. I'll also say this, the watch is 40 millimeters. It's a clean, no-date dial, exactly where you would want to see a no-date dial. The pricing is fair for what you're getting for the warranty, for the chronometer spec, the 3-day power reserve, vertical clutch, column wheel, in-house caliber, $8,400 with some room to negotiate because it's a Breitling. That is a really good price for this watch. A proper manual wind. This is almost essential for a dress watch. If it's not a manual wind, it had better be a peripheral rotor or a micro rotor, or put the rotor under the dial like the Agengraph. But this is a great look for the caseback of a dress watch in the year 2021. And critically, we get a stainless steel case, which means you can wear it casually, you can wear it rough. It is 100 meters water resistant, which I think at this point should be the bare minimum for any watch. When you can now do this without a screw down crown, what's the excuse for not doing it? Especially when some watches like Patek Philippe have a price point at the time of design that would accommodate the purchase of a BMW. So if you've got a watch that costs that much, why can't it be 100 meters? This watch, for 4 figures, already is. So much to love, so graceful, and at 13 millimeters thick because of the manual wind movement, it's properly thin. Not super thin, but thin enough that you can call it a dress watch and it'll fit underneath the cuff. Water aside, steel dress watches become as durable as sports watches, which means you can wear them all the time, which means you get more value from your dress watch. Style and substance come to the fore. Design and movement are what define a steel dress watch, not the precious metal premium you pay for gold, silver, or platinum. So Rolex, let's talk a bit here, because for many years, there's been a controversy over whether the Datejust is actually a dress watch. Well, look where it's situated on Rolex.com. Classic watches. And what do they say about the Datejust? Well, it is the classic watch of reference. That is the classic among classics. And if you were to scroll a little bit further to the right, you would have found the Datedate and you would have found the Cellini, which means if you look at the Datejust, yes, it's a dress watch, and a great one, available in full stainless steel. How far ahead of the curve was Rolex with this? Well, in 1945, for the 40th anniversary or jubilee of the Rolex brand, Rolex launched the first Datejust. That's why the bracelet is called the Jubilee. It was born in 1945 with the watch itself for that occasion. And yes, at the time, you could say that with the Perpetual automatic winding system and the Oyster case in stainless steel, and with what would have been at the time radium loom, it was a sports watch, or at least an all-arounder. But at 36 millimeters, with a fixed bezel, with a Jubilee bracelet, and I should mention certain versions that are not loomed, you can get very dressy with the Datejust. And in fact, you should if you want to have a wonderful all-arounder that's a two-way player. Wear it with a bathing suit, wear it with a business suit. Whether it's the pool hall, the pool, the boardroom, or the boardwalk. You've got versatility with the Datejust, and you better believe that Cellini's notwithstanding, this is not just a dress watch, it is Rolex's most successful dress watch. If you were to scroll over to the Cellini's on this little menu, you would see that the Cellini is described as the classical watch, not the classic watch of reference. That's the Datejust, which says to me, this is a watch that is an unabashed dress timepiece. Especially today in 36 millimeters, a man wearing this watch in steel, unloomed, on a Jubilee bracelet is getting a dress watch that's also 100 meters water resistant, shock resistant, anti-magnetic, and automatic. But you can also go with an Oyster bracelet. You can also go with a loomed dial. No need to get a gem set case, no need to get a gem set dial. This is a timepiece that can do both and can be tailored without customization to serve in either role. And I would also say that my version of this watch, as you see it here with the green palm dial, new for 2021, with the domed bezel, no diamonds, no gold, nothing, with loom, that is about as sporty as the Datejust gets. So yes, the Datejust is a dress watch, especially when you configure it as such. Omega, I should mention, embraced steel dress watches long ago, especially with the DeVille and the Constellation collections, but I really feel like in recent years it's gotten on a growing bandwagon by taking its dressiest standard watch, the DeVille Trésor, and in 2019 offering this watch with a steel case. This is a fantastic piece and one of the best dress watches you can buy. It's also one of the few thin Omega coaxials because it's one of the few manual wind Omega coaxial master chronometer movements. But I continue with a brand that makes an absolute, I don't know, I would say it is synonymous and inseparable from the idea of dress watches, Vacheron Constantin, still one of the best in the business. Vacheron was far ahead of Patek, AP, and Lange in offering super premium dress-style watches in steel. This is one case where Vacheron was actually ahead of all of the rest of them, which have variously over the last 20 years claimed to be hipper than Vacheron at any given time. Well, I'm sorry, but Patek, AP, and Lange, Vacheron was doing steel watches in dress format 6 years back, in series production, not special editions the way Patek does. You had the Quai de Lille in 2015 with the silver or the black dial in steel. You had the 56 collection of 2019 available right out of the gate with rose gold or stainless steel. You're paying for the watchmaking there, not for the case. The Corne de Vache, 1955. First they did the 36-piece Hodinkee in steel back in 2017. 2 years later, the Corne de Vache 1955, which is as close to the perfect chronograph as you're going to get. That watch was offered in stainless steel. And I should mention, this is a really big deal because that's a watch that in platinum costs $29,300 more, and you'll see that in a moment. Get that watch in steel, and at $42,200, I feel like what they're charging is what it's worth. That is true value right there for what you get. Let's talk about the sculptural beauty of that stainless steel case on the Corne de Vache. As good as it gets. Vacheron historically doesn't have a design icon like the Nautilus, like the Royal Oak, like the Moonwatch, like the Submariner. Yes, they've got the Overseas, but that's a modern era watch created in 1996. If Vacheron has one distinctive styling trademark over the years, it has been its liberal use of extravagant, even Baroque lug designs. That is Vacheron's unique aesthetic legacy, from the very first of their dress wristwatches to the modern era, and this is emblematic of that. I would also say the detailing of the Le Mans movement, caliber 1142, Geneva hallmark, beautifully blazoned with top-level finishing. With the steel case on reference 5000, you are paying for the style and the movement, not for platinum, not for gold. And I would also say, even at retail, remember, $42,200, good price. The platinum watch PT, it looks exactly the same, but you're paying almost $30,000 more to get it. Steel for me, please. Patek Philippe. Now, they do steel watches, and they do many steel watches between the Nautilus, the Aquanaut, and the Ladies 24. The majority of their steel watches are the Ladies 24, which is to say steel dress watches. But when it comes to steel men's dress watches, they are few and far between, which makes it remarkable that in 2020, Patek Philippe had 2 steel men's dress watches in series production in the catalog, with the bold slate 6007A you see right there, slate dial, applique radially arrayed white gold loomed Arabic numerals, a 40mm stainless steel Calatrava style case, a very handsome watch, one that wears robust and substantial on the wrist because it is broad, angular, and striking. I would also say that because 2019 bought us the 5212A, the weekly calendar, it was incredibly unusual to see not one but 2 Calatravas in steel in series production available in one model year. Between the two, I actually like this one better. But again, it's because you're not paying for a gold or a platinum case. You have that lovely handwritten style font on the dial, the weekly calendar complication, which is quirky and rarely seen, and you're paying for the design, the dial, the movement, and the case detail, which is achingly gorgeous even at the 20x loop level. Truly special stuff and hand finished. But let's say we want to talk value. Well, many companies, from Longines to Mito to Baume & Mercier, have done steel dress watches. What's really been remarkable is the Haute Horlogerie and the high mech watches available as steel dress watches in recent years, such as Oris's, yes, Oris's Atelier collection. Since 2014, Oris's world-class caliber 110 family, which is everything it appears, has powered the Atelier 10-day collection, which are exactly what they sound like. 240 hours manual wind power reserve. And make no mistake, despite their size, these are dress watches. Moritz Grossmann getting in on the action, pumpkin dial. Let's also remember that if you want a dress watch that costs considerably less, go from Moritz Grossmann to IWC, which is $12,700 for a Portuguese or 7-day automatic. Less than half the price of the IWC Portuguese, $5,700 for the caliber 111. Now I've taken it down from Haute Horlogerie to luxury horology with IWC to entry-level luxury with Oris. And yes, less than $6,000 to own this thing on a full bracelet with the 10-day movement. How impressive is that? Well, again, a half-price IWC, and you have the general idea because you can see what IWC charges for an almost identical style of watch. The bargain proposition? Yes. It's Oris. And I would say yes, give credit to JLC and IWC, which for years have been making luxury dress watches in steel. The Portugueser has always been fundamentally a steel watch, but what impresses me today is the range of options in steel dress watches. From the very traditional Rolex Datejust configured as a dress watch, to the high horology with Patek and Vacheron, to entry-level high-mech, high-spec dress watches from the likes of Oris. All of this and haute horlogerie indies are getting into the act, as you can now get your Moser, your Grunefeld, your Moritz Grossmann, like we just saw a moment ago, and Carry Voudelaine, and you can get them all in steel, or in Voudelaine's case, a few titanium offerings. And remember, Moser did not offer many steel watches until around 2016, 2017, so the emergence of steel high horology is still a relatively new trend and phenomenon, and smaller names are getting in on the act, realizing that you don't have to charge an extra $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for gold. So names like Habring, Ming, Sartori Bullard, which is probably the next big thing in affordable indies, as well as Anordain. They are building steel dress watches on a daily basis. This is now a thing. The trend is well underway. I would say this train is leaving the station, so if you got an inkling that you might like one of these watches, now's the time to get ahead of the market. Let's see what you guys are saying right here. Mick in Florida saying, you bet, the new Calatravas are amazing. Ryan Bass saying, I just tried that one on, it is stunning. And then we've got Rohit R saying, I'm in love with Brigade dress watches. Not a ton of them in steel, but I've always felt like the Marine is halfway between a dress watch and a sports watch in style. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Okay, and then Jabo Surf saying, two unbeatable dress watches for the money, Moser Mayu yellow gold and Moser Center Seconds white gold, under $10K for precious metal. That's true. If you find underrated watches, sometimes you can pay steel money for precious metal, and that's the best of both worlds. We've got Nathan Silva saying, I love the 6007A, but the steel Patek I want most right now is the new 4947 1A annual calendar. Pity it's only 30 meters water resistant. Smooth acceleration opining the Lane Torsti Lane V38 is an amazing steel dress watch. And then John Anderson letting us know he has a titanium Paul Gerber. Paul Gerber of Zurich, another great choice for lesser known indies with real high horology cred. And then we've got Ashay S saying Grand Seiko SBGJ 219G. Jack saying, I was going to get an Anordain, but I got the GO60s instead. Both great choices, no mistakes to make there. And then we've got Felipe Z saying, hi from St. Augustine, Florida. Very, very cool, guys. Let's take a look at what comes next, which is your viewer wrist shots number 4. All right, I asked, you answered. Francisco A makes his debut on the show, his first ever wrist shot with us, with a sweet Rolex Yachtmaster steel platinum blue dial. Harry B of London lends his love to his other love as she models his Grand Seiko Skyflake. Desmond O and his Corono Tokyo Mori first anniversary are grocery shopping. Tasty. Dial and food. Alvin A of Singapore takes us cruising with his Breitling Airwolf Raven Super Quartz, and Ian H takes us home with his Bell & Ross and a seriously high bypass turbofan pulled from a Boeing for repair. You are the man. Hands on with machines, guys. Send me pictures of your micro machines. Monday mailbag at thewatchbox.com for your wrist shots. Guys, comment below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what steel dress watches you want to buy in 2021. And let me know what I missed in the segment. Thanks to you. Thanks to Sean. You guys are the best audience on YouTube. Thanks to my sister for the shirt and Watchbox for the jacket. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.